welcome to Work in Progress with Nicole Engelmann, which is me. Today I'm joined by Jess Hellens. She founded Wild, which is an amazing community that I'm part of for women and non-binary people, and also strategy genius and marketing expert. So
Oh my God.
without further ado, here's Jess. Hi, Jess.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me and for all those kind words. You can write my CV. That would be great if you could do that.
I'm here for it.
I love it. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited
No,
to be
you're
here.
very welcome. Yeah, I'm really excited about the chat as well. I mean, I know you. You don't have to introduce yourself to me, but if you talk a little bit about what you do and how you came about it, a little bit of your journey as well, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as you said, I'm the founder of Wild Coworking, and it's now 6 years old, which is absolutely bonkers. I started it as a physical co-working space in 2019, and it was in Somerset. It was a very small space, and I knew that there needed to be somewhere for women and non-binary people in business to feel safe and surrounded by like-minded people, because it actually came off the back of a report called the Rose Report, and that identified that in the UK there's only 1 in 3 people is a woman. 1 in 3 entrepreneurs is a woman in the UK. And I was like, oh my God, this can't stay the same. And so there were recommendations in that report, and one of them was community and how community can really change that number. And I was like, okay, this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I want to be surrounded by people that get what it's like to be self-employed. And I was feeling underestimated. I hated going to networking events that were full of like old white men. And bless them. But the amount that I encountered in traditional networking events it just wasn't that enjoyable. So I wanted to create my own space. And like I said, we started off as a physical co-working space, but then COVID came and shut us down. Which at the time was like, oh my God, all these wonderful things I've been working on, and essentially my livelihood was going down the drain. But in hindsight, it was the best possible thing that could ever happen to us, because now we're a large community with women all over the world. So yeah, it's changed the game. It's meant that I can work with more people. The community can grow and find other people to work with. So yeah, that's what I do. And my other business is marketing consultancy, and I'm obsessed with strategy, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But that's me in a nutshell, in a long nutshell.
So did the marketing was there first, or was the community there first?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how far we want to go back. I'll just start the story. I'll just tell you the whole story, shall I?
Yeah,
Why
sure,
not?
definitely. Yeah. I haven't heard it
I
before, so
Have you not? Okay. Because I've said it, you know, when you said it so many times, then you're like, do you want to hear this? I'll share it. So I've always worked in PR and marketing, straight out of university, straight into arts and culture, PR and marketing. And that's seen me work with so many incredible businesses, organizations, theatres, festivals. I've worked with loads of incredible people. In fact, I was just telling a world member how I spent a day with Daniel Day-Lewis once. Like
ooh.
so many experiences that I've had that were amazing. But when I came out of university, I decided that I wanted to um, create a CV that meant that by the time I was 30, I became the director of my own business, my own agency. And so every single choice that I made in terms of job and the way that I constructed my CV meant that I created a hybrid of in-house and agency roles. So it was a strategic move, and I knew that I had 10 years to do this and then end up as an agency owner by the time I turned 30. And I worked really, really hard on that. In 2016, I was living in Brighton, and that was when I was 29. And I had got to the point where I basically was 10 years later down the line, and I'd burnt myself out so badly. I was in a really, really bad place. My lifestyle in Brighton could not be more opposite to where I am now. I was working in music, and the lifestyle that I was living was how you imagine working in music. It was toxic. It was horrible.
Late
Um,
nights as well.
Late nights and the way that I was living. I mean, everyone can kind of read between the lines, but I was making myself very poorly. And um, I just basically turned into a shell of a person. And then people around me were like, oh, this is not, you're not okay. You either let us look after you, or at some point it's just going to be the case. We're going to have to do it one way or the other. So I moved back to my mum's house in Somerset uh, about 3 months before I turned 30. And I was like, this was not the plan. This was not in my plan of becoming an agency owner by the time I was 30. But what happened was, after I recovered after a couple of months, was me realizing that actually everything that I've worked for was still there. I was still beyond capable of doing this that I've always wanted to do. And I built JDH Communications from my mum's kitchen table, and it became something that I had always imagined it would become. It's just wild to me that it actually happened, but it came around in a way that, you know, if I had planned it again, I wouldn't have done it in a very toxic, dangerous way. But it did work because that's how I planned it. Um, I was just poorly along the way. So that started in 2017. I started JDH from my mum's kitchen table. And then from there, I was like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. I've got people that are working with me on various projects, but actually I'm working from home, and I've got questions that I don't want to ask YouTube because there's a load of bros telling me how to do it. I was like, I don't relate to you at all. None of this makes sense. So then
Yeah.
from there, I realized how important the community was. And during kind of end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I started developing the idea of Wild. And then we opened beginning of 2019 in Frome in Somerset. So it all happened quite quickly after I recovered from burnout. And yeah, so then 6 years down the line, here we are. That simple.
Yeah, I mean that's simple, yes. But do you think that because obviously you've been quite poorly and you've
Mm.
burned yourself out before, that shaped how Wild has shaped as well? What kind of space it is?
Oh my God, so much. And the type of clients that I've worked with as well. So I've worked with like disabled theatre companies, and I've realised how the world is so ableist. And so something that I always wanted to create was an accessible community. Um, and learning so much from my career, I realised that actually having accountability to looking after myself was so important. And me seeing other business owners working themselves into the ground because they felt like they had to do it all themselves it just meant that businesses failed. They stopped working when they
Yeah.
didn't need to, because you don't need to do it on your own. And when you're surrounded by people that have either been there before or are right there next to you, um, going through the same thing at the same time, like that's so powerful. It can be a difference of having a really bad day and then dropping like even a message into the WhatsApp group, for example. You know, we've seen it today with some members who have really needed support, and the whole community huddles around them, and suddenly life and business feels so much more durable and less stressful, and way, like, you just feel so much less alone, and you carry on. And like, that's the difference between not doing it and doing it, is having the right people around you. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely relate. I mean, I think sometimes you just need to speak it out and like say what you feel, and then it's good there's someone listening and someone like, I
Yeah.
know exactly how you feel. I've been there last week or last year or whatever. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, we're right on time. Yesterday was a in-person co-working with Wild
Yeah.
in London. And we talked about it as well, where sometimes you just, I mean, sometimes you don't get anything work-wise done because you're just chatting and catching up with everyone,
Yeah.
and that's half the reason why we go,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
just chat and ask questions. But someone said as well, "Oh, what I've got done today, I probably wouldn't have done at home because there were so many other things that distract
Yeah.
me, and this is the kind of work that I only get done when someone else is sitting next to me and I'm not at home." Or Meg had some questions about a website, and Freya was there, and she could just like turn her computer to her and say, "Oh, I have this problem. Do you know what this is?"
Yeah.
And it's done
Yeah.
within a minute.
Oh,
Whereas
such a
you
game
probably would have
changer.
looked it up for half an hour somewhere on Google and still
Yeah.
haven't got the answer.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
also talked about how what kind of people you attract, like just that it's such a wholesome vibe. Like we know everyone who's there, even if you don't know everyone personal, you kind of know, oh, they got through the Jess check, the vibe check, there's not a bad person in there. And
Yeah.
just it's such a nice space to kind of vent, ask questions, you don't feel stupid. And you, even if someone doesn't know the answer, they kind of know where you have to look.
Yeah.
Or they know someone else that, oh, look at this person, they might be of help or something. So it's a really
Yeah.
great space.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. It
Well,
is.
it's actually, yeah, Wild is one of the reasons why we're doing this today. Because I mean, I've had the idea of a podcast for, I don't know, 2 years. It was in my head that I wanted to do something like this, and then Wild was probably the first community I joined after like saying, "Oh, I want to get more out and meet more people."
Yeah.
And then I had all those great conversations offline and online with Wild members, and it's like, actually, I really like having those conversations. This is what I want to do for the podcast.
Yeah, so good. It's such a good idea, and it's so important so that other people can, even just listening to this conversation and knowing that people have struggled, it's like, oh, okay, so that is part of it. Like, I can carry on. I'm not rubbish at what I'm doing because
Yeah,
everybody struggles. But I'm so pleased that that's how you feel about Wild, because that's what I've always wanted, people to feel safe and seen and heard, because so often that wasn't the case, or isn't the case, for people building businesses. And I think, um, the more communities that there are like ours, the better, because that is changing the business landscape in the UK and actually worldwide, because that keeps people doing what they love. That we don't get that many perks as self-employed people, so, and we work so hard, so you may as well work on something that you really, really love. And like you said, being surrounded by other people, either in person. So I should say that Wild is a virtual co-working community online, and also we have in-person co-working, as you were just talking about. And yeah, that, like, sitting next to somebody that can, like, even something simple like that, those questions are just like game changers. So
yeah.
I'm pleased that it uh, is working.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you make real life friends you make real life friends as well. Like, and just meet up two or three people rather than like always waiting for the in-person thing. It's like, oh, actually, is someone free on Monday and wants to meet somewhere there.
Yeah, I love
So it's
that.
yeah, it's so great. Um, I mean, we talked a little bit about like what COVID did to the community. Can you go a bit like, when did you make the decision? Was it basically instantly, oh, COVID, now we go online, or what was the process?
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, looking back on it, I'm quite nostalgic for that time, bizarrely, even though at the time it was extremely stressful and terrifying. But like I said, in hindsight, it was great, because it was a time when people supported small businesses more so than ever before and since. And it was a time where people were open to taking risks because actually we had no other choice, right? So when I realized that our space was being shut down and that we all had to, at the time, I think it was called social distancing. Um,
Mm.
and it wasn't
2
looking
meters.
likely. Yes. And we couldn't work in offices. We couldn't leave the house basically for more than an hour. I knew how important the community was for everyone, not just to me, but everyone that was already in it. And I knew that because of our objective to make business feel less lonely for people, um, I knew that that could still exist in some form. And so I basically overnight turned us into a virtual online community, created a library of workshops, previous resources that I'd created, moved everyone into a WhatsApp group and put everybody on the same tier, and they were our founding members. And it was the the driving force behind that was that I didn't want anyone to be left behind. And I had people every day coming to me and kind of, freaking out that suddenly they'd lost half of their clients, maybe even all of their clients. They were faced with having the whole family home, maybe homeschooling. And it would have been so easy for people to lose themselves as business owners in that moment. And it our objectives was exactly the same whether we were in person or online. And so I knew that there would still be a need for it. But it mainly came out of really one, like, caring so much for our members that I didn't want to not hang out with them. Like, I started
Yeah.
this community because I was lonely, and like I couldn't do what I do without everyone. Like, that, it was the need that I had. That was the reason I started Wild. Yeah, basically, when I realized that we were not going to see each other for a long time in person, I didn't have a choice. There was no other way. I just didn't want anyone to be left behind. So yeah, I still remember writing the letter to everyone. I've probably still got it. I will have it somewhere, and saying to everyone, this is still so important to be surrounded by like-minded people. You are also important to me and to each other. I'm going to put everyone on the same tier, and we're in this together, and we'll pull through together. We'll get through COVID. We'll find new clients. Everything's going to be all right. And Wild will be your anchor through this. We'll weather the storm together. It was just so important. It was important before, but when we were all faced with, like, are we going to die? Like, is this an actual thing?
Yeah.
Like, if we leave our house, like, what? It was so uncertain and so scary that there needed to be a constant. And so I wanted to make sure that Wild provided that. So yeah, there's a long answer to a simple question. Sorry, but
No,
it was
I
like
totally
such
get
an
it.
epic time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah,
And I would actually say during COVID or lockdown, the need for something like Wild was even bigger than before because you're
yeah,
even more isolated. There's
hmm,
even more unknown things that you're facing. Like you said, people didn't know if they were gonna die, if any loved ones might die, because
yeah,
especially older people. All of a sudden, a whole like I know like wedding photographers literally had to deal with loads of cancellations and just didn't went from fully booked to not having any bookings or from like not knowing if they shoot in like 2 months time or not, and losing all this money. And with a lot of other industries is it was the same. So you need someone who's like someone you can talk to, someone who's there, and that's just a support group, and you're, like you said, your anchor.
yeah, definitely. Were you self-employed in COVID? Must have been. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
How was that for
And it
you?
was really isolating. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was really isolating. So I don't have family here. At that time, I did have a few friends that were self-employed, but not in the same scale it's now
Mm,
because I've joined all those communities and went out, on networking and stuff like that. But I was mainly alone. Like sometimes I would text my landlord who lives basically underneath my flat, text with one or two friends, and that's it. I would literally 3 months I was home. I only went out like every 7 to 10 days to go shopping.
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And that was that. And then I think the first 4, 6 weeks or so, I still had some work to do, like editing and stuff like that, but then nothing. And it was literally like, it wasn't even about surviving like in a physical. It was literally like, am I going to have enough money
Yeah.
in in a month's time or 2 months' time to pay my rent, to pay my food? I mean, there wasn't much going out, so there wasn't those expenses, but there was still like the basics. I think literally all my savings were gone by June, and that was when stuff reopened. And that was the saving grace. I wouldn't have survived another month without probably asking my parents for money or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was so isolating, and I think there's definitely there time kind of blurred together. Like I
Mm,
had to look at the calendar, what date it was, and it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
there was probably a month where I was just lying on the couch watching TV, and it's like there was nothing else to do. So I think a community like Wild would have been really good, just for my sanity.
Yeah, because we still had a similar structure to what we have today. So I started virtual co-working sessions um, during 2020, and we obviously have those like daily now. But I started them then. When I started them, nobody turned up, and I just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And I kept to a schedule, I kept to a structure, and then people started turning up. More and more people started joining in um, because of that. Because everything could, everything merged into one, right? You could be like
Yeah,
on Saturday and think that it was a Sunday, and that was the reality. I was really lucky that I kept a couple of marketing clients, so um, I lost some work, but there were a couple of bits that I could still work on. Um, but yeah, the having people to talk to about self-employment was so important. And actually, I think that has carried through now. And I think what it taught us was that community is the only thing that's going to save us. And even now, when we're faced with the world as it is at the moment falling apart, community is the only thing that's going to keep us safe and looked after and strong. And so, yeah, that's something I learned from COVID. But we still have founding members with us today from 2020, well, from 2019. Um,
yeah,
so that's lovely as well. So yeah,
yeah.
what a
And it's a
time.
testament to like it's a great space when people are like, this is great. It
Mm.
probably has changed, but it's still the same in its essence, I guess.
Yeah, and that's because our values and my objectives for the business have always been the same. And so no matter what form Wild takes, our aim is always the same. We will always stand for the same thing. There might be like, additional bits and pieces, but at its core, the same things remain. So yeah.
And in terms of your marketing business, like how much of your business is community and marketing, and like is Wild a bigger part of your business, or is marketing, or is it quite equal?
Yeah, it's Wild is the main thing that I work on. So it used to be that JDH was my bread and butter, and then Wild was developed alongside it. I worked on them equally, but in terms of money that came in, it was mainly JDH that brought in my turnover. And it takes a long time to make a membership profitable. So has taken quite a long time. In the past kind of couple of years, it's shifted over to the other side, and now Wild is my main focus for business. And I have one client for JDH now. just one, which I love still. I love keeping my toe in the marketing world and working with at least one client, because it teaches me a lot. But I work with people one to one as well in Wild, and that's bloody lovely too.
I was just about to say that it kind of carries over, or like, they both aren't exclusive, because you do offer like the CEO days as well, and
Yeah.
like the strategy sessions, and the beyond the bubble thing as well. Um, so I really love that the community isn't just, and even if it was just, it's great for
Yeah.
that already. It isn't just like talking and soundboard. It's also, there are workshops, there are
Mm.
like group programs that you can join if you want to, and it's just such a lovely space. And I mean, I'm part of a few communities, different ones, and from time to time you're like taking stock and thinking, oh, is there anything I should get rid of,
Mm.
or like, is this still working for me? And Wild is always on the like, this stays. This is not, I'm always gonna have the money for this, because this is, I just don't want to be not part of it.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you. And I love having you as part of the community. It is like we all are, we're just so part of each other's lives. And I feel so honored to be surrounded by people like you, and all of our other members who are so talented and inspire me every single day. I'm just like, how do I get so lucky? Because you're all absolute badasses and so inspirational. And when I step out of the wild bubble, away from our lovely community, our safe space, I'm like, oh my God, things still need to change, because what happens in Wild is that we work together. I think it's something like 70%, maybe even more now, of members have worked with another member or are currently working with another member. And so when I see that happening, I'm like, this is such a dream, what an honor. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, we hype each other up. I mean, I've literally worked with a couple of members as a client and as the provider, basically. So I've done shoots with people, but I've also hired
so
someone
good.
to help with the website, and also we part of each other's journey, because we're then following each other, and people post about stuff in a group or even online. And you're getting inspired, and it's like, oh, I want something similar for my business, but obviously with my spin. But it just gives you so much inspiration and like ideas, because sometimes we're too close to our own business, right?
Yeah.
And then you see someone else doing something, it's like, oh, this is great idea. If I do this, then it feels more like me. But I just really like that first spark, I guess.
Yeah, such a good point. It's really important, isn't it, to be surrounded by that inspiration and like fresh ideas, different ways of approaching things. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love working with people one to one on that kind of thing as well, and bringing the older that Wild, the longer or the older Wild is. Can't really. How would I phrase that?
The longer Wild is running.
I suppose so. Yeah. The older we
I
get.
mean, also the older it gets, yeah, treat it as a person. It's
Yeah.
kind of own entity in a sense, right?
Yeah. The more that I'm bringing my expertise in with marketing, because I never really did that in the past few years, since we started. I bring in, and still do, members host expert-led workshops and clinics, and that'll always be the same. But I've realized that I have so much, or I can help people in so many different ways, especially with marketing. And I had like a realization a couple of years ago. I was like, why am I not why am I not helping more people with this? So yeah, there's going to be more of that, but it will stay the same in terms of those workshops that you were talking about. Members will always host those. We're going to have more clinics. So it's just a really nice collaboration space, and that kind of working with other members it just happens, just naturally happens because we're all having a lovely time.
Yeah, and I think there's already a level of trust there when you're looking for
Mm,
something, like you need a copywriter or you need help with like ads or marketing or website, and like the first point is always, does someone I know have a recommendation, or someone in the same space, is there someone? Then
yeah,
you're already trusting this person because they're part of this, and I know there's only good people on here.
yeah.
So definitely. I mean, also to kind of, I guess, end the first part, there's two questions I usually ask. What is one thing you're really proud of? Could be something current, could be something overall.
Um, do you know it? There's a couple of things. So one is that what we've just been talking about is that it's a community where um, it's collaborative, and it's a space where people can trust. Exactly what you've just been saying is that's what I was aiming for, is that if you're part of the community, you know that whoever you work with, you can trust, and kind of also find work within that community, right? So it's not just about feeling less alone, it's also about finding work. We're here to grow our businesses as well. So I'm really proud of what it's become, and that the community is so beautiful. I'm so proud of the fact that we do have a lovely, like, welcoming group of people. Like, you're all so kind. Like I said, I don't know how I've got so lucky, but everyone is so lovely, um but also has different opinions. Like, that still happens. We all share different
Yeah.
opinions on things, but we respect that, and that's like amazing. The other thing that I'm proud of is that how we got through COVID. I I don't know how I did it, but I'm very proud of the fact that I worked so hard to make sure that it still existed, and still, I don't know. I mean, it was like a haze of just working nonstop to make sure it still existed. So I'm proud of that time. I'm so thankful that I just didn't let go. Stubborn.
Yeah, resilience. It's
Yeah.
when there's no other option, you're just like, well,
Yeah.
there is no other option. This is gonna happen, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question is, what would you tell starting out Jess to do differently, or pursue more, or don't do? Is there any kind of advice you would give yourself?
I think, and it's always I always come back to this, that um I didn't take on advice from people that were like, know your numbers. You need to do your financial forecasting. You need to save money for tax. And at the time, I was all about ideas and making them happen. And whatever it took, I would do it. And so I wouldn't change that necessarily because it's got us to where we are. But at the same time, I could have been more strategic if I knew what my numbers were. I wouldn't have been I was in debt. I maybe wouldn't have been in as much debt if I'd actually paid attention and spent some time facing that hard task of looking at the numbers. Like, it's not, for me, it's not enjoyable. I think some people really enjoy it. I like it now, but at the time I was like, "Ah, it's fine. There's money coming in. Yeah, but it's not all yours." So yeah, that's what I would say to her. Like, I know that you think that everyone's just telling you this because, it's good advice that you don't necessarily have to take, but you absolutely need to take that advice.
Yeah.
So
I guess
yeah.
the other thing is, no one starts their business for the admin and finance
Mhm.
side of business, right?
Such a good
Unless we're
point.
working in that space.
Such
So
a
we're
good
all kind
point.
of like, yeah, it's a necessary evil, but it's not something you enjoy.
So right.
We're gonna talk a bit in the second part about strategy anyway, so we can touch on that again. For now, thank you for that
Oh,
lovely conversation.
oh, thank
And
you.
for listeners, keep your ear out. The next episode will be out in 2 days for the second part, where we talk about strategy and marketing and planning, all the fun stuff.
One
At
of
least
my
for
favorite
Jess.
things. Yeah, I know. I'm such a loser, but what are you gonna do?
No, you're not a loser. You just enjoy the things that a lot
Yeah.
of people don't.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I talk to you soon, guys.